the heart of an industrial revolution is an innovation that changes everything. Building AI Boston sees artificial intelligence as a renaissance. From the heart of innovation and the mecca of tech learning, we bring you AI for Real People, a conversation for everyone. Welcome to Building AI Boston. I'm your co-host, Anna DeVere, and my superstar legal justice AI founder co-host is Kara Peterson. Hey, Kara.
Hey, guys. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Good. And our guest today is Dr. Felicia Newhouse. Felicia, welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I just caught your episode on Ambitious AF, and I'm literally gobsmacked about what you know about AI and your insights around AI. But for those of you who don't know you, I think your LinkedIn byline says quite a lot, that you're a human-centered AI strategist who empowers women entrepreneurs to simplify, scale, and thrive. I'm excited. We have a lot of DNA of our shared interests, but if you don't mind, Felicia, can you just take us back to younger you and talk a little bit about your early influences? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up? And were you more like tech interested or people interested?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background was, honestly, I was a bit schizophrenic. Like I was all over the place in terms of, I had this side of me that loved humans and psychology, and I gravitated towards anything in the psychology and kind of therapy fields. But then I was also very drawn to entrepreneurship since I was a kid. Always starting a business, having a venture. And so as time went on through the years, I found myself split. I was always doing a side project while I was in business. So I did take the business route, went into business, did business school, did the MBA, ended up in technology. But there was always this pull on the heartstrings of like, but man, this is part of this capitalistic system that is really just focused on money. Where do the humans come into this? Where is the sustainability? What are we building towards in the future that's really lasting and that has a positive impact on humanity? And so that pulled me into a PhD program where I looked at women business owners around the world and how they can be supported to create sustainable businesses, because I saw that especially in a field like tech, right? We see so much incredible innovation come out of it, but there's, I think, a lot of people asking, how long can this go on? How long can you have this fast-paced environment and economy? And where is the sustainability in that? At some point, does that burn out, right? It's, if you really zoom out in human history and you look at the trajectory of technology and innovation, right? It's really sped up really just in a very short period of time of like the past 120 years. So it's not like we're looking at, you know, being in a computer age for hundreds of years here, right? Like if we look at things like the printing press and PCs and laptops and AI and all this stuff, it's very, very new. We're really in just like the very early, you know, incubation stage of it. So all that being said, in terms of kind of how I ended up here, the PhD and the tech career kind of got brought together into really a place where I'm focused on AI advisory for women, small business owners, and bring that together with technology and heart-centeredness and human-centeredness, and really making sure that the AI strategies are human-centered.
I love that. And so you really brought us all the way forward. So that answers my question about your professional background. And I know Kara's got some particular questions about AI, but, you know, thank you for explaining that you're human centric. I think that's really important to your story. So I appreciate that breakdown.
Yeah. And, you know, the fact that you're talking about human centric when we're talking about AI, I think is so critical because, you know, one of the fears, of course, people have is that the human's going to be out of the equation, right, with AI. And that's the whole sort of fear. So when you think about this moment we're in with AI and what makes you excited about it, because like you say, we're at the very beginning. And so what do you see, particularly maybe for women and women entrepreneurs specifically, why do you think this moment is so special? Or do you think this is a special moment?
Yeah, I think for women especially, it's a really interesting moment because when I zoom out and look at, I don't know, the past, like, say, 75 years, right? We were kind of touching on that before with the evolution of knowledge and what's happened with printing press and computers. And, all of these things over the past century have put humans into an interfacing position with information. And so when you're in an interfacing position with information, you burn out really fast because you're trying to essentially process and distill down and summarize and leverage all of this information, all of this knowledge, right? So that's a role we've uniquely played as humans over the past century. So when I think of women and now opportunities like AI is now playing that interfacing role. So a lot of the things we've seen with burnout and tech burnout specifically, we have this opportunity now to essentially step into, I think, an opportunity where we can be more human. We can be more human-centered. We can be more heart-centered. We can focus on the things that that make us creative, that make us uniquely human. And I think when we look at the burnout over the past, 50 to 70 years in the workforce, I personally believe, and what I've seen the data also has shown, is that women have been burned out because they're trying to play so many roles in interfacing with information and playing all these roles across society, across their families. And I think now there's an opportunity for them to actually outsource a lot of what was burning them out and what was, just kind of repetitive, mundane tasks, where they can now maybe step into a more creative role in their lives and their work and have a focus back on the family and back on the society and the local community. And so when I think of small business owners, I think that also opens up an opportunity to focus on local community as well. And all the things that are beautiful about what makes us human. So it's not about, this whole AI versus humans. It's a tool, just like any moment in history where we have tools or we have new technologies or innovations. It's what are we going to do with it? How are we going to use it? And we are standing at a very interesting crossroads around, how are women also uniquely going to use this? And how are they shaping that trajectory with where AI is going?
So I thank you for that. I really think you framed it up nicely in the things that you've said before about how COVID presented this problem to us succinctly, that, because we were forced to stay home, a lot of people having the hybrid model of work, I can vouch for it. Like you've talked about this, how, suddenly you're juggling family at home and work at home, but it gives you this nice perspective of what do I enjoy? Well, I very much, like you've talked about, I enjoyed taking out the kind of the stressors at work that were, well, I don't want to get into too much of the prejudice that I was facing, but particularly I was working so hard to stay, into a remote situation. And then I was working so hard as a podcast producer just to keep up with the technology. I appreciated that I could do it from home. I appreciated that I could focus on the family. But when it was suggested to me that ChatGPT could do my job as a writer, it hit me between the eyes, because I thought I've been working my what off to just cope in this environment. But it was actually an opportunity to step back and say, hey, I don't think it's actually going to replace what I do as a creative. It's going to enhance that. Thankfully, I'm through that moment. But is that kind of framing up the kind of burnout that you see in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. I think humans in general have been burned out, especially the past 5 years. And the data has shown that. The research has shown that there's this mass exodus from corporate happening. A lot of people had the time during COVID to really reflect and think about what they're doing with their lives. I think as a society, there's been a lot of research showing too that because we've been on autopilot, and we haven't had that time, like there's been this like increasing burnout, right, across our society. And then COVID was this kind of reflection point where it's like, wait, is this what I want? Is this what I want for my life? Is this what I want for my family? And then with AI kind of speeding that process up, where I think over the past 5 years, that reflection has culminated into, how am I leveraging AI to continue furthering my reflection process around what I want to do with my life, right? So you have kind of all these interesting trends kind of coming together at once here and clashing around, small business growth. You have, AI skills gap too, and people are trying to figure out how they close that. You have people during COVID who there's been the mass exodus of people thinking about leaving their corporate jobs. And you have, women specifically, if you look at that demographic, I mean, they've been launching businesses in terms of growth at up to 4 times the rate of men. So there's just a lot of really interesting data over the past 5 years around how the workforce is changing, really is what it comes down to, and how we're really taking more control over our careers and asking about what's actually sustainable for us as humans in both of our life and work realms.
It's okay to highlight this subject, and thanks for commenting on it, Felicia, because I think women in general in tech have been ignored a long time. My favorite history moment for women was when Hedy Lamarr was involved in creating technology that actually helped us cloak our torpedoes. It's a technology I can't explain, but it's the frequency hopping spread spectrum. And it just seems like she wasn't inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame until 1997.
Yep.
And people focus much more on her Hollywood career and bombshell that she was. I think that's frustrating that someone so bright, was sort of marginalized, where, you could argue she's got a Netflix special now, but why do you think there's such a biases towards women in technology?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the case for a long time. It starts young, right? It starts when with STEM. So we can look in middle schools is where like the data starts to kind of diverge from girls and boys, right? And just kind of the career choices and the ways that they are supported or not supported into those fields. The models they have, right? It gets complex. But in terms of, the skills gap, it's interesting. I mean, there's gender disparity in tech use as well, and in AI use specifically. So if you look at the numbers, over half of men use AI in their personal or professional lives compared to just a third of women. So men are, at least today, more likely to use AI tools for work-related tasks that make them more competitive. So there's a lot of things fueling this. There can be, again, just education models, women being supported, women feeling supported in rooms where they can learn AI. We see a lot of situations where there's lower tech confidence in male-dominated environments. So if you look at a field like tech specifically and you pick out any random woman, the data will show that in male-dominated settings, women often feel hesitant to ask questions or show vulnerability, which slows the skill growth, right? Like they don't feel like the spaces are inclusive for them to feel. Sometimes I don't like using the word safe, so I'll say emotionally safe or educationally safe to learn tech openly and to really, build that confidence and foster their own development and advocacy for closing that skills gap for themselves, right? So, and then when you look at entrepreneurs, it really doesn't change, because if you go on YouTube right now, for anyone listening to this, and you type in AI skills, learning AI, how to use ChatGPT or anything like that, right? That if you're a business owner, you're in tech trying to learn AI more just trying to pick up some AI skills. 9 out of 10 of those people on YouTube are men that are you can look at it just from just an eyeball, right? I mean, most of the people who are teaching these tech skills are men. So what does that do for women in terms of their confidence, who they're modeling those skills after? How that's actually being applied to specific use cases as well. I mean, we've also seen this in the data too for many years is, teams that have a more balanced gender disparity, equal men and women, they do better in terms of bottom line, in terms of revenue, in terms of the types of products they launch, their sustainability and the success of those products and those offerings and those businesses. So if you have the skewing of that learning towards one gender, you're missing the contextualized use cases of how that learning can be applied and to solve business problems, if that makes sense. So when you just have one type of teacher, how are you, like, women offer this really interesting and different perspective. That's why they're amazing. That's why men are amazing. That's why humans are amazing, because we're different. And the more diversity you have in a given room to solve a given problem, you're going to have better solutions that are just more holistic. And so This is why teachers and mentors and having spaces for people to learn that are diverse are so important, especially when you have a new technology like AI, which in and of itself and how it's been built and the information it's been modeled after is not diverse. Right. So we could get into a 2-hour podcast about that and just the, how AI models are built and that lack of inclusivity and diversity. But if that is skewed and that is myopic, I mean, what is that building in terms of a future world for women,
I think
for our girls, right? So
yeah, I want to follow up and thank you for talking about the systemic problem. And you're right, it could be ongoing, but I want to suggest that the upside is that I think the human brain is super adaptive, because I know that I understand all that biases. I'm a mother of a young woman. And at the time I brought in my friend from NASA, who was, she has a particular space inspired camp for kids. And the very virtue of her coming forward as a NASA, astronaut trainer, and bringing in astronauts for this program, my third grader, hung out with her in the kitchen while, she's going to essentially teach middle schoolers. But because she saw Michelle Lucas, she went back to school, got interested in the science fair, and she actually won the school-wide science fair submission that year. And her project in third grade went on to the university, which I credit to having that person in my kitchen modeling that, hey, this is for you. And I think while you're correct systemically, I think there's an upside to exactly why we're here, the three of us, and exactly what we do currently, because it's easy to shift that trend. I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder, I mean, not to play devil's advocate, Anna, but why is it so stubborn, this trend, right? Because the things that Anna just said are exactly right. And there are these wonderful, sort of cases where individuals have had, great impact, but the trends just are so demoralizing sometimes to look at. And one of the stats we talk about in sort of the entrepreneurship world is that the 2% of venture capital funding goes to female entrepreneurs. So yes, it's changeable, but why? Dr. Newhouse, tell us, Felicia, why can't we move this needle better, and what do we need to do to get this going?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated. There's no like one size fits all, I think, answer to that question. But I do think it comes down to the people in the leadership positions, right? Like, who has the money, who has the power? Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, that's what a lot of things in this world do come down to right now, and the way the world is currently designed in our current society and our current economic system. So that's why I'm a big advocate for looking at the small people, the small businesses. If you look at our economy, right, most of our economic growth, our GDP, is driven by small businesses. Small businesses under $500,000 in revenue per year. These aren't large companies. These are tiny. A lot of them even under $250,000 a year. So this is, I think it's important to think about in terms of power and impact, that we don't have to think about relying on VC dollars all the time either. And that's kind of another discussion, but I've been in a lot of rooms, even just in the past year, where there's young people that are starting incredible businesses, women, and they have been educated to think that the only way that they can be empowered to grow their business is through VC capital. Or through investors. There are other ways, right? There are other ways to even think about your business strategy, your product growth, your product launch timelines, how you're thinking about, that overall just kind of roadmap to go to market, that doesn't necessarily require big funding up front. That's not the case for all businesses, but I think there's far too many businesses that are thinking about it in terms of investors and outside capital. And I think there are other ways to bootstrap creatively to keep that power, in your camp.
So let's talk about this. The good news is we can, as an audience, I think you can hear how much, incredible knowledge Felicia has. I know that she fosters community in Boston. And let's talk about the upside of what's coming on January 28th, the summit, the AI-powered summit for women. And go ahead and tell us about your human-centric business and your initiatives there, and what can we learn from you when we get there in person and even virtually to attend your event.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are hosting our first AI-powered Women's Summit at MIT on January 28th. We're super excited about it. And it's essentially answering the question, why have women not been more present in a lot of these AI spaces and conversations? And so it's really a space designed by women for women, where business owners will gain clear, actionable strategies to really tackle everyday business challenges that can be solved by AI. So we very carefully curated the speakers and the content to be all women, and to be women from either industry, so people who are building products, AI products that solve tactical business challenges, or people from research, so women in research, fields like human-centered AI design, astrophysics, mental health, right? So we're really looking at women from different research fields and different research disciplines, and how they're looking at the future trajectories with AI and applied AI, and how they're applying that to research and various use cases. We're also bringing in women from tech, and women from the investing fields and venture capital, and women who are entrepreneurs, who are leveraging AI in a multitude of ways to solve problems and save time and drive efficiencies, not only in their own businesses, but also in their life and at home, with their kids, with their elderly parents, with their burnout and mental health, and all of these issues we deal with as women that are multifaceted. So we're really speaking to the humans in the room, not just the business owners. This isn't like your techie, heady, conference where we just want to talk about work all day. We're looking at it from a much more holistic perspective around, how are we building more responsible AI-powered solutions? How are we driving more human-centered impact into our local communities? And how even in our local Boston ecosystem, are we creating more human-centered relationships that we can all help each other, we can all cross-pollinate, we can all collaborate? And so some of the sessions there that I'm really excited about are actually putting women on panels that are incredibly brilliant women in their own right, but they're in wildly different spaces and realms. And I think, especially with a new technology like AI, when you put people together that would typically never be in the same room together, that's where the magic happens. And you can start to cross-pollinate knowledge around, well, this is how I'm using, this particular AI use case in astrophysics. This is how I'm using it for my VC-backed, tech-focused startup. And this is how I'm using it in mental health or education. And there's, things to learn about how we're leveraging those use cases for completely different areas. And I think that's how we further innovation, and we really collaborate as humans, and build friendships, and we build community, and we build, ways to solve very timely world problems as well.
Well, before Cara finishes this out, I just want to give you a bit of a backstory that's been brewing since I've heard about the AI-powered Women's Summit. Is that one of our future guests, Ellen Page, who is just a startup around healthcare solutions. Her particular challenge and why she's becoming taking on the challenge of entrepreneurship in the space is that she was solving a very real problem for her husband, who was experiencing a particular trauma during the pandemic. They're both educated in the healthcare space at a very high level. And she said the way that she played the dual role of being the healthcare advocate and the wife was to bring Amazon Alexa into the room and have it as a phone a friend. And when I told her that, Joanna Pena Bickley was coming to your event, she said, how do I get a ticket? I got to be there. I got to give that woman a hug, because not only did it empower her as a tool, it just was the springboard for her wanting to do something and make a difference. And she's just beginning her journey. And I think that it's so kind of you to just offer up this advice, to the world, because the connective tissue is what we need now more than ever.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And can you tell us a little bit about, I know your early bird ticket sales are probably, like, the in-person tickets may be gone, but how do people attend virtually?
Yeah, so we still have in-person tickets left for anyone local here in Boston. They will be limited. They do sell out, but there are still some available. For the virtual tickets, those are available to anyone in the world. So you can just go to aipoweredwoman.com and you can register for either. We also have a limited number of student and complimentary tickets for women in need. So if you are somebody who's struggling financially, or you're in the early stages of starting a business, or you're a student on a student salary, we are offering some limited tickets to people in need as well. So we encourage, high school students, college students, girls who are looking to learn AI and think about their future careers and look to women leaders and, that they can model themselves after. I mean, this is really a great opportunity for any woman at any stage and age of life. So,
and the tickets, are I've seen a lot of different conferences like this, and they're actually very affordable compared to a lot of other events. So
yeah.
don't be intimidated by that. So I'd love to ask you, just before we close up, about Boston. So the show is called Building AI Boston because we have a theory that our ecosystem is pretty special. So would love to hear what you think makes our ecosystem, especially as it relates to women in tech, special, and something that we can share with the world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think you and I have talked about this a little bit before offline too. And I mean, Boston's unique, right? I mean, just in terms of the sheer amount of universities, the number of people with advanced degrees, right? The number of people with tech, medical, biotech, right, backgrounds. I mean, we have a lot of experts in this town. I don't know the stats on that, but I'm sure if anybody wants to go look that up, I wouldn't be surprised if there's just like a huge density of just experts here, right? That's really cool. And I think it's powerful, but I think what's even extra powerful is not allowing all of that knowledge and expertise to be locked inside this ecosystem. I think Boston is a place where we can, if you put the right people in the room, like that's why I'm such a big believer in what you guys are building here on Building AI Boston, is you're really democratizing that expertise and that knowledge and that access to AI and learning and collaboration really at the end of the day, right, between humans to figure this stuff out and have important and timely conversations. So I think the more that we dig into the Boston ecosystem and that expertise and kind of democratize it and get it out to the world, I mean, the more everyone benefits, the more humanity benefits. There's too much good going on here to not share it with the world. So that's why I think, being in the, I guess, just stage of AI and the information sharing era that we find ourselves in today with podcasts and information sharing and content, I mean, it's really a great time to just get this stuff out and democratize information and knowledge. So.
Well said. And that I'm giving you the last word, Felicia, because I really appreciate all that you've brought today, but understanding that I think Boston is a state of mind, and I think the world is definitely part of that conversation. So you at home, please like and subscribe and join us again, because I hope you'll be coming back, Dr. Felicia. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, guys. It was great to chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get ready to be inspired. On January 28th, 2025, join us at MIT in Cambridge for AI-Powered Women, a groundbreaking event celebrating the trailblazing women reshaping the world through artificial intelligence. Witness the brilliance of visionary leaders, innovators, and changemakers who are driving the future of AI. This empowering event will feature captivating talks, panel discussions, and live demonstrations showcasing how women are harnessing AI to solve some of the world's toughest challenges. Don't miss this unforgettable day of innovation, empowerment, and collaboration. Reserve your spot now and be part of history in the making. Thank you for joining us on Building AI Boston. Stay tuned for more enlightening episodes that put you at the forefront of the conversations shaping our future.